Hi, I'm McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today, when your girlfriend doesn't want to date you anymore. This is actually a really good topic. A client of mine had sent me this email, and basically, he had come to me originally out of a breakup, and they got back together. And so it's actually a really good story because they're a good couple. It's one of those things, like I've said often, breakups are actually a good thing for a lot of couples because they weren't a good couple, if that makes sense. They weren't a good match. And so getting back together isn't always the answer. But there are some couples out there that I'm rooting for, and that when they do get back together, it can really work. And this is one of them. So he sends me questions sometimes in an email, and I know he doesn't mind if I put him on the live stream, but when your girlfriend doesn't want to date you, his exact words were more how do you continue to date someone who doesn't continue to date you? So just consider that narrative or that question that he's asking. He's feeling like she's not meeting him halfway on the bridge or wanting to date him. So some of the things to unpack if you were feeling that way would be, has it always been this way? Have you always had to be the one to initiate the dates when you're in the relationship? So a lot of times it's always better for a man to lead, but there are men out there that seem to think, well, I'd like her to make an effort. I know that's not in all the dating videos and masculinity things out there that you always have to lead. You have to be this strong, confident individual. I'm with that. But there's a lot of men that go, hey, I would like some kind of an effort at some point. I would like to feel like I'm special. I know that one comes up a lot. What's up, Skinner? And what happens is, especially when they're in a relationship, is that you feel like you're doing all the work. But what happens is, what happens with hard work or anything that's work-based is if you get rejected or told you don't do a good job, it just brings you down 2 more notches and then you don't try again. So a lot of times guys will feel like, well, she rejected me, so why try again? Well, she doesn't really want to date me, but really it's timing, circumstances, and the emotional state of the individual at the time. Now that sounds like a big word. I know women are more emotional than men. That's absolutely true. They're more up and down, and you need to gauge that in the moment. So what happens is, she doesn't find your jokes as funny recently. That's a big one. It's like, oh, I used to be the funniest guy around, and now it feels like everything I do or say is kind of annoying or boring. Well, that's what happens when you start to live together. Okay? Like, if you ever lived with a partner, that's what happens. It just happens. I'm sorry. I mean, if you've had roommates, if you've had brothers and sisters that you had a room with, like you shared a room, right? How annoying do they get over time? It doesn't mean you don't love them. Doesn't mean you don't care about them, right? Think about that for a minute. Anyone ever had roommates, siblings, let alone shared a small house, right? Shared a room. You get annoyed with them 24/7. Coworkers, you get fucking annoyed with them, right? Am I wrong or right on that? You get annoyed with them. And the same thing happens as a couple, but people get their feelings hurt more because they're like, this is my girlfriend. This is my wife. She shouldn't be this way with me. She's allowed to get annoyed with you. Being annoyed with someone that you love is actually very common, right? Because you spend so much time with them. You know their ins and outs. And sometimes when it comes to humor, it's like, yeah, you said that one before. You didn't know you were recycling the same sense of humor. It's not that funny. But humor is really something that's served best when there's an appetite for it. What do I mean by that? It's like, if someone's not in the mood to laugh, joke, giggle, get tickled, etc., they're not in the mood. They're not in the mood. And that doesn't mean that your jokes aren't funny. That doesn't mean that they're bored with you or they don't want to date you. It means right now, I'm in a bad mood. Right now, I had a bad day at work. Right now, I just was in 4 hours of traffic. Right now, I was just on the subway and someone was mugging me for an hour looking like they were going to steal something from me. People are tense these days. And so sometimes they need to air it out a little bit. And what I mean by that is just like, give me some space. So taking it, oh, they don't want to date me. Not right now. Oh, they don't like my jokes anymore. Not right now. My advice when this happens, back off. Don't take it personal. You might even take 2 steps back and go, you okay today? Something bothering you? Ask about her day or his day. Ask about, was there something that went down at work? Can't you sense when someone's just not in the mood? It's not necessarily they don't want to date you or you're not funny or they're bored with you. They might be having something else on their mind that's taking precedent. And so realizing that it's not you is half the battle. And then dialing back, like I said, haven't you been in situations where people are trying to be funny or trying to cheer you up and you're like, I just want to be pissed off for a minute. I know I'm like that sometimes. I don't get angry easy. I don't like to be angry. It's not something I identify with, but when I am, just back off for a little bit. Just give me some space. And I think that right now, sometimes people are like, oh, I guess it's just me. No, it's not you. It's the situation. And so you really have to gauge that. And like I said, you could say, hey, do you want to talk about it? Did you have a rough day today? No, I don't want to talk about it. All right, just leave them alone then. Don't take it personal. Look at a really interesting thing about putting things in perspective is like, have you been in a situation where you didn't think they were that funny? Where you were annoyed with them and their antics? Right? So coming back to this email, so he says that she's in a new job. I understand it takes time and energy, but it still doesn't feel quite right. Well, probably if this is something that absolutely contributes to turbulence or problems in a relationship. Someone has a new job, they don't like it, or they're just adapting to it. I know in my own life, I've had a few different jobs, and sometimes the first 3 months just fucking suck because you're learning a new system, you're learning the people you work with, but you can see a finish line where it's like, this is pretty good money. When I get to know what I'm doing, I'll feel a lot better. Human beings like to predict things. So when they go into a new job and they can't predict what's coming next or they don't have all the answers, it's really uncomfortable. It's like places I've worked before or sales jobs that I've known other people to work at. I'm like, damn, you have all the answers. It must feel good. Like, you know, it's like right now with breakups. If someone comes to me with a breakup, I don't have all the cures or the answers, but I know how to unpack it and get to the bottom of it for you because I've been doing it for a while. And so when I go into a situation where someone books a live coaching session, I don't feel like, oh my God, what are we going to do here? Or I come across a situation I haven't seen before. I don't panic. That's a good feeling. Now, people that are perfectionists or have anxiety, sometimes they have a lot of trouble with new jobs. It's going to take them a little bit of time, but once they groove in, they'll be a lot better off. That being said, it could just be the job is not for them, and that will be, over time. But this idea that they don't want to date you is something you've just come up with. And they just don't want to date you right now. And so your ability to say, okay, back off, do your own thing, give them some space. And I've seen this again and again, especially with men, taking it personal. They're in a good mood, they're upbeat, they just did a good job at work, and they want the other person to reciprocate their feelings. People don't always feel what you feel, and getting them on deck, getting someone out of the bad mood state after work. Sometimes it doesn't work with a couple jokes or let's go out. Sometimes it's just like, give me an hour, right? And they might not say that to you. So in the marathon of being in a long-term relationship, don't take it personal. Don't take it as a narrative for the entire relationship. Take it as they're not in a good mood right now. Ask them if they want to talk about it. And don't take it as a rejection of going on a date or those kinds of things. Getting back to this, there's a lot out there about you got to continue to court and date your wife. There's a lot out there for women. You got to continue to date and court your man. If a woman gets broken up with a man, then she comes back to that. If a man breaks up with a woman, she comes back to that. There's truth to that, right? But what happens is post breakup, a lot of times people go, oh, they didn't want to date anymore, or this or that. Some days, this is what, when you live with someone or you're officially in a relationship where you're together a year, 2 years, 3 years, it's different. There's going to be times they don't want to go on a date. And I've said this before, you can do all the right things and it still doesn't work out. But when someone's in a bad mood, they're bored or they're annoyed with you, they don't think your jokes are funny, that could just be a moment. And there's something called taking that away from them, the takeaway, and just realizing for a moment, all right, you just want some space and come back to it later on. But some people want to sit in their feelings for a little bit, especially after work. That's a sweet spot for just leave me alone, especially if you have a job. And this is where people can't relate. It was really interesting. Andrew Bustamante, which was a great interview I watched. He's a former CIA agent. And he was talking about introvert versus extrovert, which a lot of people know what an introvert is and an extrovert is. But he was saying, where do you get your energy? Do you get your energy from people, like being in groups? That's me. Or do you get your energy from being alone? Like you got to restore your energy, right? Now, some people, when they're in groups, they're absolutely drained. Like if they go to a cocktail party, if people even call it that anymore. If they go to a party or something like that and they come home and they're just drained. They're just drained. Well, is that something that your girlfriend or boyfriend identifies with? Because probably if they're in a social atmosphere at work, they probably need like 2 hours, 3 hours to restore their battery because they're drained. I never thought of this before, this extrovert, introvert, how much you get energy from a group of people or how much you get energy from being alone or having quiet time. I could definitely say I get energy from people. I get amped up in a live stream. I get amped up in a coaching session. When I say amped up, I'm not saying, times 10, but I get that energy from it. Some people are the opposite. Now, saying that, if you're in any kind of social atmosphere with a little bit of stress at work, just a little bit, if you're, coming up to your girlfriend at the end of her work shift on a work night, try this out as an experiment. See what it's like on a weekend with a full night of sleep, right? No hangover, slept well, and then ask about a date or crack your jokes in the morning at breakfast and just see the difference. See if there's a difference. And then you'll know it's timing and circumstances rather than you or them. Now, that's where you make the problem bigger than it is, and then you start accusing them of, this is where you can end up in a breakup. You start accusing them of not wanting to date, that being annoyed with them, that they don't care about you. But really, it's just like, right now, I'm not in the mood. I just need time to myself. Joe Helka says, in my case, if I don't want to date a person, it's because they just don't attract me at all. Why waste time? I'm not the person to waste someone's time or space. Absolutely. I think in this particular case, what I was talking about is when you're with someone, okay, that you're officially together, whether that's a partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever you want to call it, you're together. Some people call it dating. Well, we've been dating. Are you together? Yeah. We're together. Officially? Yeah, but we call it date. I've been dating him or her. Okay. Whatever it is, when you get to that point, there's going to be times where people are annoyed. And a lot of it has to do with their job or their purpose outside of you. So like, even if they don't have a job, let's say they're taking care of one of their elderly parents that are sick. And then you pick them up after work and you're like, let's get a pizza. Let's go do this. Let's go throw darts. Let's go bowling. And they're like, I'm not in the mood. And you're like, wow, I'm really trying to still date them, but they won't let me date them. Well, not tonight. They're not in the mood. And the circumstances are they're drained. And so you just got to realize that that's not you. And then, like I said, if you're in one of these situations, perhaps take a day or two where you don't try and you go out and do your own thing. And not to spite them, not to make them jealous, but just to go out on a hike or go walk on the beach or go walk around. If I lived in a major city, which I don't, I like the mountains and I like the beach because they're close by. I've often said this, Walk around the city with your favorite playlist going. It's like a city hike. Remember, there was LA Gear street hikers, right? It's like have a city hike. Go out in the city and listen to your favorite music by yourself. So if you're feeling a little bit needy in the sense that they're not responding to wanting to go out with you, and this is my girlfriend, take a moment and go, well, I'll just go out and have some fun on my own and see what happens when I come back and after I give them 2 or 3 hours of space. A lot of times you're not looking at it from an aerial view, an objective view. You're looking at it from, I didn't get what I want, I did something wrong, or they did something wrong. Well, how about just taking a completely different route and just leaving them alone for a bit? All right? But this comes up a lot, like, oh, you got to continue to date. You got to continue to date. It's like, yeah, you do, but you don't want to force feed them that. And if they're in a state that's been affected by other things outside the relationship, and this is one of those things, men aren't as aware of it. Men are fee-fi-fo. I just want to be on good terms so we can sleep together tonight, and I don't want to get into petty fights. I don't want to get into this. But they're a little bit less aware of what's going on when there's an emotional issue, and it doesn't mean they have to be their therapist. It just means, like, sometimes just listening. Women will often say, just listen, don't tell me what to do, right? And a lot of guys, I hate doing that. Well, if you don't like doing that, then give her the space to decompress also. All right, we got 6 on deck. Let me know if you have any quick questions. This was going to be a quick live stream day. I just wanted to touch base. So just to recap, when a girlfriend doesn't want to date you, assess the situation. What happened to her that day? Is she having trouble at work? It's not you. It might be other things. Your girlfriend is annoyed with you. No one is eternally annoyed with anyone. So if you sense that, rather than explain yourself or accuse them of complaining about being annoyed with you, just back off. Just back off. Give them some time and some space. She doesn't find your jokes funny recently. Is that because of when they are being delivered or because they're redundant? Those are 2 different things. So like I said, there's times when you're not in the mood for jokes. If you sense that from someone, just back off for a little bit. She seems bored with me. Well, in a moment, when you live together in a small apartment, there's going to be times when you're bored with each other. Like I said, look at your other parts of your life when you've ever shared a room or a housing situation. Because it is your girlfriend, it is your boyfriend, your husband and wife, but it's very similar to roommates or siblings when you were young and sharing a room. They will annoy you, they will make you bored, you will get sick of them, but guess what? If you stick it out and you work through those rough edges, that's love. Really, that's love. I mean, that's part of the game. That's part of unconditional love over time, right? And being able to just sense, hey, I'm in the mood to play around and joke around, but they're not. It's not personal. There was a group of experiences throughout the day that has led up to this moment where they're like, just get away from me. Just give me some time and space. And some people are very good at creating their own space, going for a run or a walk, getting out of the house, going to a library, coffee shop, whatever. And some people are like, their safe space is home, right? And don't take that personal. This comes up a lot because someone thinks, well, I'm the same guy, my personality, my humor, my dating attempts, but I can feel a shift in her. I think it's just a moment. It's more of just a moment, and you're pressing. If a person is interesting, no matter what, they will make time for you. Don't you think? You have to ask yourself why she doesn't want to continue maybe not matching. I disagree. So, good question, Joe Helka. I'm glad you chimed in on this. Thanks for your opinion. I'm going to give you mine. And I know where you're coming from on this. If a person is interested, no matter what, they will make time for you. I've heard Corey Wayne talk about this, and I like Corey Wayne, and I line up with a lot of his stuff. He said that someone will know if they want to have sex with you in the first 2 minutes they meet you. That's just how it is. I think that that's true, but there's also times when you wouldn't say that, but you eventually are attracted to that person. Does that make sense? Now, to flip that statement on another thing is, if a person is interested, no matter what, they will make time for you. Now, think about that statement. Someone's mom has just been terminally ill, and they're dealing with it. And you're, upon the first breaking of that news, you're like, oh my God, I'm here for you. But you really can't be in their shoes because it's not your mom. Unless you're extremely empathetic by nature. A lot of men aren't. So let's say that the mom's terminally ill for the last month, 2 months, 3 months. And you're like, yeah. And all the while you're like, well, it's the mom will be okay. But this, like, your point of view on that and the stress involved for the woman or the man, you'll never be able to line up with that and feel what they feel. So when they're in a bad mood, you're like, what's wrong? They're not going to go, oh, well, mom's terminally ill. I've been dealing with this. Well, yeah, you've known about it for a while, but and then you'll give surface advice like, oh, well, just do this, just do that. Right? Hey, coach, I always thought that you're supposed to be masculine, attractive, and alpha all the time as coach. I don't think it's good question, Sex with God. Check out his channel also. I think that you have to have moments where you just back off. So here's the thing. What's your, what masculine, attractive, and alpha all the time? Okay. But when it doesn't quote unquote work, then you get frustrated, right? And I'm not going to sit here because I don't know, everyone's definition of masculine, attractive, and alpha are different. So we could sit here for a long time and debate that. My point is timing and circumstances play a role. Right? Like, think about it. If your dog passes away, are you going to be in a masculine state for the next 2 days with your girlfriend and you're very close to your dog? There's going to be nuanced moments, right? Where you're extra sensitive. That's okay. Right? My point is, when you're in a relationship, this idea like no matter what, they will make time for you. Well, what are the circumstances though? You know what I mean? Like I've said before, someone had a client, they lived in LA. His girlfriend came home from work. He's like, I don't know what her problem is. I'm like, is there a lot of traffic? Because I know LA's full of traffic. He goes, oh yeah, she sits an hour and a half before she gets home. That's why she's pissed off. Have you ever sat in an hour and a half of LA traffic and then you come home and you're going to be in a good mood? Oh, well, that's not an excuse. Kinda. I mean, if you could, you know what I'm saying? Oh, since she started her new job, there's been a big problem with her. She doesn't find me as funny. Well, is it the job or is it you? It's not about being more masculine or attractive or alpha. The ultimate masculinity thing is to be centered, to be stoic, to never have a problem. Like, for you to even complain about your girlfriend is not masculine in a lot of books. Think about that. No one is always going to be in the masculine. No one's always going to be in the feminine. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're fucking Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink. You're going to cry sometimes. You're going to be upset. Something's going to grab you. And if it doesn't, are you really living? So, that's the thing. Now, like I said, getting back to the whole topic, she doesn't find your jokes funny recently. Well, like I'm saying, the timing and the circumstances. Well, then ask different questions. Meet her at her bridge. That doesn't mean you need to be demasculated. Hey, is everything all right at work? You want to talk about it? Or just go, hey, did you just want some space? Right? There's other options than doing the same thing over again and somehow thinking, oh, I'm not funny anymore. She's bored with me. That's just a perspective. You could take 5 different other perspectives. But if I were you, and like I said, let's say it's Sunday, she had a full day off, it's in the afternoon, you're like, let's go to the beach today, like full head of sleep. But if there's something else bothering, then dig. Hey, what else is bothering you? And when you dig and she says, I don't want to talk about it, leave her alone for a little bit. But then set aside some time. Hey, I'd like to talk. And don't treat it like, I think you're being bored with me. I think you don't want to date with me. It's not you usually. She would have already left the house. There's a lot of times people are affected by outside things. Sometimes you can't fix those right away. That's my point. It's like, no matter what, they will make time for you, don't you think? No, I don't. I don't think it works that way. Oh, if she's attracted to you, nothing would stop her from sleeping with you. Well, I could come up with 5 things random. Oh, well, those are, this or that. It's like, right? It's like I've dated women before. It's like, oh, their sister's a train wreck, right? Their sister's got all kinds of problems. all kinds of problems, drug addicts, got 3 kids, etc., right? Actually, I don't think I've dated one that bad, but I'm just giving you an idea, right? Didn't date him for very long, but here's the thing. When they would say, hey, I can't make it, my sister just came to the house, she's a wreck, I wouldn't take that personal. I'd say, all right, we'll deal with it. That's on you. I wouldn't take that as, what an idiot, your sister's a loser. Why are you doing this? It's her sister. She grew up with her. Now I can get on that train if I want to, because eventually if I'm going to be with that person long term, that sister's going to become my problem. But here's the thing. It's a choice. But saying that they're stupid, this is the biggest problem people have. You're never able to put yourself in their shoes. You're always looking at it from the perspective, they're not doing what I want. They're not doing, and this is the other thing about Sex with Gods. I know that you watch a lot of YouTube. Corey, like I said, I like Corey Wayne. I've noticed a lot of clients of mine, because they read the book 15 times, recite it like a Bible, and then when it doesn't line up with what they're doing, they're like, well, it doesn't line up with the book. And there's been some guys that have actually sabotaged their relationship in the name of the book, of following someone's rules on YouTube. And I'm like, here's the thing. What you're not allowing yourself to do when you follow a textbook on dating or relationships, there's a lot of good books that give you a lot of good things on attraction and those things. But in the moment, you got to allow your subconscious mind to deal with things. It's like when you're on the road, right? Most of the people in the world drive something, a motorbike, a car, a van, a truck, right? So anyone in a driving situation goes, all right, I'm going to drive today. Everyone's somehow trained themselves to drive. They didn't use a textbook, by the way. What they did was they just drove a lot, right? Now, think about this for a minute. You do everything right when you're driving, but then some cat runs out in the middle of the road and you got to make a knee-jerk reaction. Do I brake? Do I speed up? Do I run the cat over in the name of not getting in an accident? All these things go on in 10 seconds. Anyone that's driven has had this happen, right? Dating, when you get to the relationship part, this stuff happens. It's like, what? I haven't seen this before. I did this, this, and this, and it didn't work. Now you got to allow your subconscious mind to make a decision. And don't blame it on, well, they're weird, or they're annoyed, or they're bored. It's like, no, they're human, and they're more nuanced than you think. So when you follow a textbook, sometimes you're going to go, well, the textbook said this. Well, it doesn't apply to everyone. It doesn't apply to every situation. That's okay. The problem is everyone's trying to go into relationships and never have problems. It's like, all right, well, you're going to have some problems to deal with. It's just the way it is. It would be nice if they're not like that. And the people that are like, oh, we never fight. You know, those are the people that come to me and they write a story and they start out, we never fought. Well, maybe it would have been better if you fought because someone was holding back. So my advice for this individual would be a couple things. All right. The way you've spun the question, my girlfriend doesn't want to date me, right? Okay. Well, if she doesn't want to date you, is it timing or is it every day? So give her some time and space. Talk to her when she didn't just get off of work. Talk to her at a time like a Sunday or Saturday when she had a full sleep, is in a relaxed state, and go, hey, let's talk. And don't make her the bad guy. Ask, hey, is there something? I've been noticing that you're a little annoyed recently. Is that me? Or is that work? Now, that might not come off masculine, but I think that would be a good talk for a relationship. Not making yourself the victim in the situation wouldn't be good, but having a open conversation, what do you think? No one gets this stuff right 100%. Lead with good intentions. You have to ask yourself, why doesn't one to continue maybe not matching comparable in one's like? Like I said, humans aren't absolute in their behavior. There's circumstances that change behavior. And this is the masculine and the feminine. Well, women are like this, men are like this, circumstantially. Overall, generalized, yeah. But then when they're not like you assume them to be, you panic and you're like, oh my God. It's like, well, what do you want to do? You have some choices here. Blaming people for who they are when you haven't walked in their shoes is really tough to do. Right? I just put together a story video. I don't know if you watched it, Sex with Gods. And I released it. It doesn't have a thumbnail up. But people make shitty assumptions sometimes. They do about people just because you just don't know what they've been through. Oh, why is this person so... How many times have you worked with someone? I'm going to close it out with this. Think about it like this. You've worked with someone. If you've worked enough jobs or you worked in a social place. You worked with someone and you're like, God, they're always down. I just had this recently. I just did a hypnotherapy course, and there was an individual in the group that was just really down, really negative, right? And they had some personal issues once you got to talk to them that I thought, totally understand now. A lot of people don't share that. You just see their face, their sadness, they're upset, and you go, what is it, me? No. You're actually not that special, right? It's deeper. And sometimes you won't fix that, but the one thing you can do is be a little bit more empathetic and compassionate. Now, whether that's masculine or alpha, it's fucking human. All right? And how far you go with it, if you're sitting... The thing that I think being compassionate and empathetic, you can do it as a masculine guy. And what you do is you eliminate them... You eliminate the idea that that they did something wrong to you. That would be victim-based. Does that make sense? All right, I got to go. It's been good. I just wanted to touch base today, so it was a shorter live stream. Leave it in the comments if you have a situation like this. If you want to send your story into writemac.com, go ahead and do that or book a live coaching session. Eve, it's been great. Masculine is productive, assertive, and aggressive. Quality. Famines is resiliency, stillness, and reserves. I think so. Well, those are, sounds like a Webster's dictionary thing of masculine. Everyone can create their own masculine thing. If someone has 2 or 3 of those qualities, but they're not really productive, there's all kinds of things to that. Sex with Gods, always a pleasure. Good to see you, bro. Joe Helka, thanks for chiming in and giving your take. Brand new Skinner, be you. Go Bulls. Light.